Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 2nd of August, 2021. Alright everyone, we had a big weekend over the weekend. A lot of NFT mania going on, prices going up again, ETH just, steadily going up. I mean, I think it's on its 13th green daily candle in a row, which is quite crazy after, I guess, like just a few weeks ago where everyone was like really fearful and the price was just kept going down and everyone was like, oh my god, the bull market's over, we're going to like triple digit ETH, and it's just hilarious how quickly this space moves. You really can't even plan out a couple weeks in advance of where this space is going to be. So that's been fun to watch. But anyway, I'm going to talk about the NFT stuff in a bit. Don't want to harp too much on about price. Just wanted to give a quick kind of shout out here. We did the AMA with Daniel from Cryptocurrency Jobs over the weekend in the Daily Gwei Discord channel. It was really good. A lot of people participated, got their questions answered. The full transcript of this AMA is now available. It is linked here, which I'll, of course, link in the YouTube description for you guys to check out. If you are looking for a job or just like curious about what's going on in the crypto job market, or, how to work for a DAO or anything like kind of like that, definitely check out this post, this transcript, because there's a lot of alpha in there, really. I mean, Daniel was awesome. He answered all the questions very thoroughly, and he answered them with really great information. So definitely go check that out if you haven't already. And the second thing I just wanted to give a quick shout out to was the Beacon book. The auction is ending in 24 or 27 hours from when I'm recording this, which is tomorrow at, oh god, I only know the Australian Eastern Standard Time for this, but basically it's ending at, I think, midnight tomorrow Australian Eastern Standard Time, or 1 a.m. or something like that. So definitely go kind of like buy the book if you haven't yet. There's 57 backers so far. There's going to be 100 of these books, so you can scoop one up on the cheap while it's still available here if you'd like. But yeah, this is basically the Beacon book that I've been talking about for quite a while. It's the one that has like interviews with 47 Ethereum researchers and developers, ETH2 researchers and developers, and follows along with their journey and things like that. So definitely go check this out if you haven't yet. And that's it on the kind of like shout outs part of things. I did want to talk about this tweet that I put out today. So I was thinking today, I'm like, okay, what things happen on the Ethereum network that obviously need to pay fees, and what things intuitively are bearish for ETH that happen on the network, but are actually bullish under an EIP-1559 kind of network. Now, I put out this tweet where I said, once EIP-1559 is implemented, every time someone sells ETH via a decentralized exchange, it will be bullish for ETH. Why? Because every DEX trade on layer 1 has to pay gas fees in ETH, and most of these fees will be burned. So in turn, we invented bullish selling, checkmate bears. Now, I want to, kind of unpack this a little bit. It's not just layer 1 trades, it's going to be layer 2 trades as well, because the layer 2 kind of like operators are going to be posting proofs to layer 1, which have to pay ETH and gas fees, and ETH's going to get burned like that. But for the sake of my tweet, I just wanted to keep it simple here. But essentially, this is quite funny when you think about it, because it literally every single transaction that happens on the Ethereum network after 1559 goes live this week is going to burn ETH, and it doesn't matter what it is. And I've said this before on the refuel, where I talked about how no matter if it's a bull or a bear market, fees, ETH is still going to keep getting burned via fees. Like we saw during even the quietest periods of the market, the average Gwei price still stayed around 10 or 15, and this was during the quietest periods of the market, after we came down like 60% off the all-time high or whatever it was. Everything was just like sideways as hell. There wasn't much happening at all. And then recently we've spiked back up because of like the NFT mania. The market's getting hot. We're in the 30 plus Gwei range now, 20 to 30 depending on, I guess, the time of day. And I expect that to keep going up if we go into like another kind of full blown bull market here. But essentially, it doesn't matter, because whether it's people buying or selling ETH via a decentralized exchange or any other token, ETH's getting burned. Whether someone's getting liquidated, ETH's getting burned. Minting NFTs, ETH's getting burned. Doesn't matter what the transaction is, ETH is always being burned. And I think a lot of people miss this. Actually, I think a lot of people don't realize that just because things are bearish, just because things are quiet, doesn't take away from the impact that 1559 is going to have on the ETH supply. Now, in saying that, it's funny because I've gone on about 1559 a lot, obviously on the refuel and on Twitter and everywhere for a long time now. But I think the merge is like 10 times more bullish than 1559 for the ETH price. And the ETH1 and ETH2 merge is going through hopefully in Q1. So that's still another like maybe eight months away or something like that, six to 8 months away or something. And I think that's more bullish, but At the same time, that's like a one-time event, I guess. And I don't think it's going to be priced in or anything. I don't think anything's ever priced in when it comes to Ethereum. But the fact that it's like a one-time event where, it happens once and then that's kind of it. It's not going to happen again, is very different to with 1559, because 1559 is a variable thing where you'll have bullish periods where ETH is being burned and like a lot more ETH is being burned, right? Like say the fees are $50 million a day, which we saw during kind of like the mania of the bull market. And then, say they're $5 million a day. So obviously there's going to be like a 10x difference in the amount of kind of ETH being burned, but it still doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's variable. There's always going to be ETH being burned, no matter what it is. Even if it's only $5 million a day, if it's $50 million a day, it doesn't matter. Whereas with the merge, even though I think it's going to be more bullish for ETH in kind of like the short term of like, I guess like when it happens, because of the fact that it's a one-time event, I do think 1559 in the long term is much better for, I guess, like the price of ETH and much better for, ETH's longevity and ETH's value. Now, I should unpack what I mean by like a one-time event. Basically, once the merge happens, we have what people have coined as the triple halvening event. Now, I explained this the other day, but just for those who didn't catch it there, basically the triple halvening is essentially ETH's issuance being reduced by 90% when the merge goes through, because we're cutting off all proof-of-work issuance. We're dumping the miners, obviously, getting, maybe dumping is the wrong word, but like getting rid of the miners. So the proof-of-work issuance goes away, which is 4.5% around about right now, and we just have the proof of stake issuance, which is I think 0.6% or something like that. It might be higher once we get to the merge because more people stake ETH, the higher it goes. But still, we could see like between 80 and 90% of an instant issuance reduction. So, but the thing is, as I said, that's a one-time event. That's not going to happen again. And I consider that to be extremely bullish. But if we didn't have 1559 coupled with that, I think that it wouldn't count for much over the long term, because the network would obviously get used to that, and then we'd still be issuing ETH, and there wouldn't be like kind of like any cap supply or anything like that. And I don't think even 1% issuance is a big deal. I mean, I think the market can absorb that. I think ETH as an asset has way more demand than that. But with 1559, this is how we get into like kind of the ultrasound money deflationary aspect, where we could potentially be burning more in fees than we're issuing on the network, and that's why 1559 coupled with proof of stakes issuance schedule is those two things have to happen for ETH to be for this to be like the most bullish thing, for ultrasound money to happen. So yeah, hopefully that gives a little bit of color there about like how my mental model is around these sorts of things, and kind of like what I'm betting is going to happen, and kind of like how I view it going forward. I think that if you just like are buying ETH and just sitting on it, like it's going to be fine. Like that's not investment advice, but really like people always ask, is like, how can I get exposure to all this stuff? Well, it's actually funny. Maybe this is a little bit of a tangent. I'm going to jump into the NFT stuff in a sec, but this relates to like kind of ETH as an asset. I have a lot of people asking me all the time, like, how do I get exposure to NFTs? Or how do I get exposure to DeFi? Or how do I get exposure to DAOs? And you can buy the individual project tokens, and you may or may not outperform ETH, and you may or may not do well with them. There's a lot of different factors to consider when you think of that. But I think ETH as an asset is just a broad index and gives you broad exposure to everything happening on Ethereum. And then after 1559 is implemented, it's even more pronounced, because you have ETH actually directly capturing value of all the activity happening on its network, on the Ethereum network. So from that point of view, really, I mean, this, as I said, is not advice. I'm not telling you to go buy ETH right now or anything like that. But really, the way I view it is that I just buy ETH, and I'm comfortable that ETH will give me exposure to all of this stuff. Now, obviously, when it comes to things like NFTs, you're not just buying the asset for the financial stuff. You're buying it because you like the asset. Maybe you like the artwork. Maybe you want to collect things. Maybe you want these in-game items to use, or whatever, right? There's many different aspects to it. And, maybe with kind of like DeFi, you maybe have like 10% DeFi tokens as part of your portfolio because you want some diversification. You want to play like a riskier bet, and hopefully that outperforms ETH. And if it doesn't, it's only 10% of your portfolio. So it's not a huge deal. There's multiple ways to play it. But I think that if people just want simple, broad exposure to everything happening on Ethereum, I mean, it's a no-brainer when it comes to ETH, and it's even more of a no-brainer when 1559 is implemented. And on top of that, with ETH, you can do a lot of things with it. I mean, you don't have to just buy ETH and do nothing. You can stake that ETH if you want. You can put that ETH into Maker, draw some DAI, and go do something with it. Like, that's obviously riskier, but you can do that sort of stuff. You can put your ETH into various DeFi protocols to earn a yield on it. There's so many things you can do, right? Like, You don't have to just sit on it and do nothing with it, which, I mean, if you do, that's fine. But I think you're missing out if you're doing that. I think that all ETH should be staked, to be honest, even if you're only earning like, I mean, in the worst case, like 1-2% yield on that ETH a year. I think that's better than just keeping it in your kind of like wallet. But I get there's a bit more risk in having it, because if you're staking on your own, you need to basically secure your staking setup. You need to make sure you don't get slashed or go offline or things like that. And then if you're staking with someone else, then you have to make sure they don't get slashed or go offline, or, you know, steal your funds or whatever. So obviously, like, just holding ETH and doing nothing with it is fine, and is more than okay. But for me personally, like, ETH to me has been made to be a productive asset. Like, that's exactly what it is. So I use it as a productive asset. I stake most of it. The rest of it I have in like a maker position where I borrowed some funds against it, and then all that kind of stuff that goes along with it. But that's generally how I think about it. So hopefully that's given some more color there. I did want to move into the thing that I guess like everyone was talking about over the weekend, and that was NFTs. Now, I think most of the attention was placed on Cryptopunks, obviously, because of, actually, I should show you this tweet first from Michael Tant, who basically spotted that the person, or at least the group that bought those 100 Cryptopunks was 3 Arrows Capital. Now, for those of you who don't know, 3 Arrows Capital is a pretty big trading firm within the crypto space. They are a $1 billion fund, essentially, trading fund. They're very well known. You know, Suzu, the one of the co-founders, is very well known for his super cycle thing. That's the term that he coined, or at least has been using within kind of like crypto Twitter for quite a while. And then Kyle Davies is his co-founder as well there. But, you know, they're very bullish, I think, on ETH and BTC and just crypto in general. Obviously, like, they're a crypto trading fund, right? And investment firm. They have a platform fund called Defiance Capital, run by Arthur 0x, and they do investments in DeFi and things like that. But yeah, I mean, the reason why I'm giving you background on who they are and what they do and how they're a trading firm is because I think this is the first, at least, big purchase from like a trading firm of NFTs. Now, if you think about it, and I was just describing how you get exposure to NFTs. Well, really, you can buy the NFTs themselves, right? Which is a lot riskier than anything else. And there's different degrees of risk here. I think that CryptoPunks would be the least risky thing to buy when it comes to NFTs, because I think CryptoPunks have extreme staying power. And I think that they're going to be around for a very long time. They have a community, they have culture around them. You know, you can't really go wrong with a CryptoPunk over the long term, at least. Whereas a bunch of the other NFTs, like, who knows, right? I mean, there are some out there that may stay around as long as CryptoPunks does and things like that. But generally, it's kind of like hard to get exposure there. So there's either you buy ETH, which, I mean, 3 Arrows Capital already has like a crap ton of ETH. I mean, they haven't been shy about that. Or you can like invest in infrastructure stuff, which I'm sure they're already doing through their platform funds or through, kind of their own book sort of thing. Or you buy the NFTs. And here they've decided to buy 100 Cryptopunks. And the way that they bought them was actually really interesting, because they didn't buy them publicly. What they did is they basically scooped up all the 100 CryptoPunks that were for sale on kind of like the Lava Labs website, which you can see. And they did this through Flashbots. So they actually paid a miner, or at least a DAO called Mining DAO here, 5 ETH to get this transaction in, where they basically sweeped all of these 100 CryptoPunks. And the reason they did this is because they didn't want to risk someone realizing that they were buying these CryptoPunks one by one to kind of like buy it up and have those people pull their CryptoPunk for sale and then maybe relist it at a higher price or something, or maybe not relist it at all. So they played it very smart by doing this. This is essentially, so the way it worked is they basically went around the public mempool. So no one saw them do this until the transaction was completed. No one saw it in the mempool. So they just basically, they did what people call sweeping the floor. So they basically just swept the floor on these punks, and now they own 100 CryptoPunks, which set off this entire mania. And now the floor for CryptoPunks is at like 32 ETH or something like that, like 85 grand. Went absolutely nuts, right? So that's what kind of caught a lot of people's attention. But that also had the on-flow effect of just NFTs in general going crazy over the weekend. Like the floor prices, which when I say floor price, I mean like the cheapest NFT from that collection that you can buy. That's what the floor price is. Across the board, pretty much they went up. Like for things like autoglyphs, things like squigglies, me bits. I mean, like pretty much like all the collections that are at least somewhat well known or at least somewhat known, the floor went up on them. And that's typical when FOMO kicks in and where kind of like a mania kicks off. Now, in saying that, like, there's no telling which of these projects are actually going to sustain themselves over the long term and are going to outperform ETH as well. I think CryptoPunks, I mean, CryptoPunks has a good chance of doing. I'm not going to say it's guaranteed to outperform Ether in the long term, but I think it has a very good chance of doing so. They're extremely scarce. Like, there's only 10,000 of them that ever existed. There's way less than that that's available for sale, and they have their own unique attributes. So I'm talking about the floor here, which basically means just like the common punks, but there's a lot of punks out there that are extremely unique. I mean, you got the hoodie punks, you got the 3D glasses ones, you have zombies, apes, and aliens. I mean, the aliens alone, I was looking at some old transactions. One of the aliens sold for $700,000 in January, and the last alien sale a couple months ago was like $7 million. And given the recent kind of like resurgence in kind of like CryptoPunks and the amount of people are spending on just the floors and the other rare punks out there, I mean, I think it's safe to say that an alien CryptoPunk would go for many tens of millions of dollars if it was to sale right now. I think we could one day see these kind of like alien CryptoPunks going for 100 million plus. And when you think about that, that's absolutely insane, but I don't think it's like far-fetched to say that this could happen, given like the fact that they're so incredibly scarce and people buy punks for different reasons. So there's kind of like that aspect to it. But yeah, generally, like, I mean, you can even see from the OpenSea volume here, Devin Finzer, the co-founder and CEO of OpenSea, said that in 2020, which is only last year, for the whole year, OpenSea only did $21 million in total transaction volume. And in the last 2 days, which is the weekend, they did $95 million in just the weekend, right? And, you know, he says here the growth curve for NFTs is insane. And, you know, this actually reminded me of something. This reminded me of DeFi Summer, because up until DeFi Summer, I've said this before many times on the Refuel, but Uniswap was only doing something like $10 million of 24-hour volume in kind of like before DeFi Summer, and that was in when I think like the market was heating up and DeFi was getting a bit more usage, and that was Uniswap, right? That was like the most well-known DeFi app, and still pretty much is, or at least one of. And then DeFi Summer happened, and we had Uniswap doing like $1 billion in 24-hour volume, like 100x increase. So you're kind of, I think, seeing the same thing play out here, where you're going to have pockets where different kind of like sectors and categories have their own manias for different kind of reasons. And there's going to be like boom and bust cycles. I'm sure NFTs are going to get crazier from here than we can kind of anticipate and know, but at the same time, a lot of it's going to zero, and a lot of it has no long-term lasting value. And actually, NFTs are distinctly different from something like DeFi tokens because of the fact that they are unique, and you actually have to find a buyer for them. So, for example, if you're holding a DeFi token, you can find liquidity for that relatively easily, even if you've got like something that is considered like a dead project or something that's not really getting much traction or whatever. You can still source some kind of liquidity for it on Uniswap. Like, even, I mean, it's amazing that there's actually liquidity for some of these things, but there is. Whereas with NFTs, you actually have to find a buyer for it. I mean, there are fractionalization protocols where you can like basically, or indexing protocols where you can somewhat kind of like sell it into that, or like fractionalize it and sell little bits of pieces, but it's a bit more kind of like complex and it gets messy. But if you want to sell the actual NFT as a whole, I mean, you literally have to find a buyer for it. There's no dumping it into like open liquidity. There's no guarantee that you're going to find a buyer for it. And you can say, well, I think this is worth like $1,000. But if no one else thinks it's worth $1,000 or thinks it's worth anything, then you can't sell it. There's no open liquidity to sell into. So I think that's what makes NFTs distinctly different. And I think that's why the NFT mania is going to hurt a lot more when it comes down, because a lot of people are going to get stuck holding these things that are worthless. And if you're treating it like an investment, then it's going to hurt you a lot. But if you're treating it as if like a collectible thing, where even if it's not worth much, you still have that collectible, right? You still have the NFT, which is the positive side to it. You still kind of like have that tied to your address or whatever. You still own it, and you can still show it off if you want to. Just because it's not worth much doesn't mean that you, or it's worth nothing, doesn't mean that you kind of lose the value that you draw from it yourself, which I think is distinctly different from DeFi tokens, because they're fungible and every DeFi token is the same, as you know, if every uni token is the same as every other uni token, for example. So from that perspective, I think there's a few key differences there to keep an eye on. But I mean, I've been saying it for a long time now. NFTs are going to be the thing that onboard the most amount of people. NFTs are not just limited to art, collectibles, gaming. It's such a wide thing. Like, anything that's unique can be tokenized as an NFT, whether that be like a house deed, a contract, like a legal contract. I mean, ENS names NFTs. they have such broad kind of like appeal and broad use cases that I think NFTs are what's going to onboard the masses into Ethereum, and they're going to be using DeFi without knowing it. I mean, I spoke about this a bit more in the Daily Gwei newsletter. You can go check that out. But it's just going to be amazing to see kind of like this growth happen. And I think we're going to see a lot happen over the next few months. But this thing's like a multi-year, decade probably play here, where NFTs are going to transform, the way kind of like we do all sorts of things, just like how DeFi does as well. So going to keep an eye on that. But I'm gonna leave it at that for now. We've got a bit more stuff I want to get through today. But yeah, I hope that you kind of like enjoyed the NFT mania over the weekend. I think it's just a taste of what's to come. That's for sure. So the L2 Beat update the L2 Beat website has updated their site here to include a new risk view. So you can basically see a quick view of all these different L2 projects and what kind of, I guess, like centralization vectors they have. Now, I've discussed in detail before how like a lot of these L2s will start off with a admin key or have like upgradable contracts, and they're not like fully decentralized or anything like that. And you can see from this list, let's just pick out Optimism. You can see that the data availability is on chain, but the contracts are upgradable, so the contracts can be changed at any time. The owner is just a multi-sig, which is obviously the Optimism team and their affiliates. And the escape hatch is a Merkle proof, which means you can still get your funds back because it's a true L2. So you just have to go, you just have to supply that Merkle proof to the contract on Ethereum, layer 1, and you'll be able to get your funds out. And then you can kind of look at, some of these other ones that are maybe, I guess, early on, or maybe more centralizing, something like, Immutable X. Like, I'm a big fan of what they're doing, but their data availability is external. Their upgradability is the same. It's upgradable here. The owner is unknown. I'm going to assume it's like it's definitely a multi-sig or something like that. And then the escape hatch is the same kind of thing here with a Merkle proof. But generally, like a lot of these L2s, I mean, the way that they're made is that essentially you should be able to get your funds back. If something happens to the L2. If it goes offline, you should be able to retrieve your funds from the smart contract living on Ethereum, the bridge contract on layer 1. So that's the kind of like, I guess, big plus there. And then, you can see here that pretty much all of them have some sort of like trade-off that they've made because they're so early, except Fuel. Fuel actually has on-chain data availability. The upgradability is immutable, so that they can't actually upgrade the contracts. The owner it's unowned. It's not owned by anyone. But the escape hatch is unknown. Now, I would assume that the escape hatch is going to be the same as the other optimistic rollups because Fuel is an optimistic rollup with a Merkle proof. But yeah, you can see the rest of them are just like nowhere close to where Fuel is, but I think that we'll get there eventually. I mean, I've discussed this before, but yeah, we're just going to have to keep an eye on that. But yeah, I like this update from L2 Beat here. You can go check it out for yourself on the site. Oh, they say it's the next update here, I should say. Sorry. It may not be live by the time this video, by the time you watch this video, but you can go check it out if it is. So Rocket Pool has officially launched their Prater testnet over the weekend. So you can now essentially play around with Rocket Pool for, I think, one of the first times in like a testnet capacity. You can experience decentralized liquid staking with RETH or run a node in the protocol using their smart node stack. Now, for those who don't know, Rocket Pool is a decentralized staking pool for ETH2 staking. They've been in development for quite a while now. I mean, I kind of feel sorry for the team because they started developing this, I think, all the way back in 2017, and the ETH2 spec and rollout of staking has changed so much over the years that Rocket Pool has had to keep up with it, and there's been limitations. They've had to wait for things to happen, but it's really awesome to see that they've finally got into testnet here. So if you're interested in, participating in this or running a node or whatever, definitely go check this out. And I think this is going to be something that really appeals to people that don't have 32 ETH, because essentially, the whole point of this is to have a decentralized staking pool that people can enter because they don't have the minimum 32 ETH to run their own validator. And these days, 32 ETH is worth whatever it is, 80 grand, 85 grand or whatever. And most people can't afford that. And I totally get that. But I'd rather these people use something like Rocket Pool than something like a centralized staking service or an exchange or whatever. So we definitely want to keep supporting Rocket Pool. And I'm really glad to see that the testnet is live. You can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description for you. So a little bit of a kind of thread here from Jake Chervinksy on that regulation that was stuffed into the US infrastructure bill that I spoke about last week, I think, on the Refuel. This thread from Jake breaks this down amazingly. I mean, it's the best thread I saw on the topic, so I'll link it for you to go check out. But essentially, he put this thread out, and then a couple of days later, he put a tweet update out saying that on Sunday night, he had like an infra bill update here where he said that they've made progress on it, but the language is still unacceptable. Next steps is that they're going to advocate for an amendment on the Senate floor. If that fails, they'll take their fight to the House. And you can see kind of like the change here. Jerry Brito put out a tweet thread. There's a kind of slight change here, which kind of I guess it changed from so this is the kind of like I guess regulation they wanted to put in place here, or at least the language they kind of used for this regulation. This is the original version, and I quote, "Any person who regularly provides any service or application, even if non-custodial, to facilitate transfers of digital assets, including any decentralized exchange or peer-to-peer marketplace." Now, this is basically saying that they wanted to regulate and require people to do tax reporting and kind of like KYC, AML stuff on things like decentralized exchanges or peer-to-peer marketplaces or whatever, which is insane, right? You can't really do that because there's no operator for something like Uniswap. Uniswap Labs doesn't own the Uniswap protocol. It's decentralized on Ethereum, and trying to do reporting for those sorts of things would just be a nightmare. And the language changed to, and I quote, "Any person who is responsible for regularly providing any service effectuating transfers of digital assets on behalf of another person." So obviously the language here is still kind of like crappy, but it's like less crappy than what it was before. So there is progress being made. So that's what I wanted to point out, is that we have people fighting for us and fighting for this kind of stuff to get amended here and to make sure it doesn't make it into this infrastructure bill, which, I mean, firstly, this is insane that these kind of like crypto regulations are being stuffed into an infrastructure bill that, I don't know if you saw on Twitter today, there's a picture of a guy holding a stack of papers that was the bill. It's like this big. I mean, you can see on my kind of screen here. It was insane. There's no way the people voting on this bill are going to read the whole thing and understand the whole thing and be able to debate the whole thing. And I just think it's like total bullshit. It's like, this is what happens a lot in politics and kind of like on these massive bills, like an infrastructure bill, is that everyone tries to get what they want into it, and they just hope that it's going to go through, because infrastructure bills are usually something what they call like a must pass, where basically like they really want to get it done, they really want to get it passed, and it's something that everyone's going to vote on, and it's like something that's critical because it's infrastructure. But crypto-related regulations do not belong in an infrastructure bill. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And most of the stuff that they've put in there, from what I've seen, just doesn't belong in there. But this is the way it works, unfortunately. This is what happens. I'm not going to give my opinions on the deep political stuff here. But if we can get this changed, where this doesn't just like, be really bad for crypto, it's going to be super positive. And I think that we're so lucky to have people like Coin Center and Jake and a bunch of other people at like, I think the Blockchain Association here, to fight for us on, and all the other people that I haven't mentioned, to fight for us and to make sure that this stuff doesn't get passed into law. Because as I've said, we are entering the geopolitical phase. We have entered the geopolitical phase of crypto. They're coming, they're fighting us, and then we have to win. Like, I mean, there's that kind of old adage, right? They first laugh at you, then they kind of like fight you, then you win, sort of thing. I think there's another part to that, but you get the gist there. First, I think they ignore you, and then then you win. Well, I mean, there's another part to it. Then you lose. If they fight and win, we lose. And I've spoken about what we can do to win in different aspects as well, like fully decentralizing the stack, making sure that we have anon or pseudo anon teams, making sure that we have teams based in friendly jurisdictions, all this sort of stuff. But the easiest thing to do in the path of least resistance is to make sure these bad regulations don't go in place in the first place. And that's exactly what people like Jake and Jerry are doing here. And I'm really glad to have them in our corner. So again, I'll keep you guys updated on all the stuff happening here, but just wanted to provide that little small update for now. So Ben Edgington put out his regular What's New in ETH2 update over the weekend, discussing plenty of different things here. You can see EIP-1559, which is the merge EIP, Altair, which is the first hard fork, things like Lido decentralizing, the Beacon book, research. I mean, it's all here. This is the best ETH2 resource out there, eth2.news. You can go check it out. This is how I keep up with ETH2. I've mentioned it like many times on the Refuel before, but I'm going to let you guys go read all of this because it's just well worth it. And there's links to reading about a ton of different kind of things here. It's just like super exciting. He's even got like resources on ETHCC and the talks there and like the videos and everything that was kind of discussed there. So definitely go check this out if you haven't yet, and subscribe to this newsletter from Ben, because I mean, this is going to give you everything you need to stay up to date with ETH2. All right, finally here, I wanted to talk about this tweet that I put out about Ethereum L2 solutions. Now, this was taken from the L2 Beat website. They had a really great little breakdown on there. But essentially, this tweet, for those of you listening in, I said, these are the different Ethereum L2 solutions. There's ZK rollups, which rely on validity proofs with data on L1. Now, Starkware and ZK Sync are the front runners here. And what this means is that the data availability is secured by Ethereum L1, and validity proofs is what secures the kind of like L2 and the user funds. Then next you have optimistic rollups, which relies on fraud proofs with data on L1 Ethereum. This was Optimism and Arbitrum, obviously. Now, fraud proofs are basically, I've discussed this before on the refill, but just give a quick recap here. It essentially means that this is the reason why there's that 7-week kind of like withdrawal delay. This is the challenge period, where fraud proofs is essentially something that you submit to the chain and say, well, I think there's fraud going on here. And then it's like a process that goes back and forth. And then at the end of the process, the fraud's either proved or disproven. And then the kind of like the thing continues on from there. And then there's Validium, which is validity proofs, same as ZK rollups, but with data off chain. So I've talked about how you can have data off chain and achieve more scalability here. That's something that Starkware has been working on. I think they invented Validium. So that's definitely something that they're working on. And then finally, you have Plasma, which is fraud proofs with data kept off chain. Now, this is basically the, inferior version of optimistic rollups, where essentially, as I said here, the data is kept off chain, so it's less secure than something like an optimistic rollup where data is on chain. And this is Polygon, has like a Plasma chain that's out there, the Matic Plasma chain. I just do want to clarify there that when I said Polygon here, I was talking about the Plasma chain that they have, not the POS chain. A lot of people took this the wrong way, which I get. And I knew it was going to happen, but I thought I cleared myself there. But anyway, I ran into character limits. And then in my second tweet here, I said that there are some other solutions as well, like Volition, which is a flavor of Validium from Starkware, ZK Porter, which again is a Validium from ZK Sync, just by a different name, and State Channels, which is another scaling solution, similar to like the Lightning Network, which is being built by Connext. And then you can go view L2Bit website for more detailed information. And Mark clarified it here about how ZK Sync's ZK Porter is a Validium, which will be similar to Starkware's StarkX, but using different ZK proofs. Starks and Snarks are the difference here. But however, both ZK Sync and Starkware are both building a Volition infrastructure. Volition is combining a ZK rollup and Validium. So as you can see, lots of different flavors, technical stuff going on here. As I said, you can go to the L2Beat website, this link here, l2beat.com/FAQ, to view kind of more information about that. I mean, they have a bunch of information on there. It's actually really cool. They break down a bunch of different things and their kind of like methodology here and how it all works. And, there's kind of like more like project definitions and stuff on their GitHub, which you can kind of view in here about their kind of frameworks. I mean, this is in code, but you can kind of like scroll through and see it. Not code, but like not like formatted, not like a normal blog post, but you can scroll through and see that here. But anyway, I think that's it for today. I've gone a little bit over time. So yes, thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.